Hello. So my name is Melanie. I am the future internal coordinator at the Lonnie D. Harris Black Cultural Center. And so this week we talked about multicultural centers. And so in the cultural centers in higher education text, I thought it was really interesting that it started out with the integration of the different centers, like the Cesar Chavez Cultural Centers, the El Centro Chicano Centers, and the Black Cultural Centers, Native American Longhouses, and Asian American um, cultural centers. And so it really talked about how all of these different communities kind of came together and made this, idea or this model about the multicultural centers. And so speaking more so along the lines of on individual campuses, there were students who saw that there were, a lot of issues that they faced separately, but then again, looking at the landscape on campus of students of color and gay and lesbian or queer people and women, they see that there was some type of correlation between them being underrepresented and them not getting resources that they thought, they deserved rightfully. And so that was sort of the premise of establishing multicultural centers. And some of the things that were talked about was that multicultural centers have a way in which they could enforce or entertain collaboration between different centers and different groups of people who identify differently from one another, yet there's still this understanding that this is a safe space, this is a place where we can be one with each other, also bring in different identities that we all identify with. And so some of the things that I highlight that I wanted to bring up were on page 180, and it was talking about the ways that cultural centers protested and had broad coalitions of individuals who challenged what was called lack of support for ethnic minority students. And so that's the similar idea that the multicultural centers put forth. And a lot of these centers were created on that basis and really tried to strengthen communities of color and other marginalized groups of people on campus. Another thing that I thought was interesting also on page 180 was it was talking about how lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students and women had recognized the importance of providing learning, reflecting, and connecting spaces for their communities, and women and queer identified students worked together as two groups who have been historically marginalized on college institutions and in the world broadly, in society and higher education, working together to create multicultural centers that aided in their success as students. And so that was really interesting. And I know that I think it was last week or the week before, I think Marigold had brought up the idea about like multicultural centers or someone, and Marigold shared her experience about being biracial or multiracial. I thought that was really interesting because she made me think deeper about multicultural centers because it never was something that crossed my mind as something positive. Only because I don't personally identify as multiracial, and so that was never something that I put much thought into in terms of actually having a multicultural center on campuses where, you see a lot of different marginalized groups of people's identities recognized and put into the center. When we think about the lack of space and visibility of multicultural individuals or biracial or multicultural students, there's definitely a discrepancy there, that there isn't a center for folks who identify as biracial or multiracial. And so I think in collaboration with the cultural and resource centers that we have on campus, I think it would be so much more beneficial for there to be a multicultural center as well. And I think just the discussion around biracial identities development and around multicultural centers on campus has really allowed me to think a little bit more deeper about the significance of multicultural centers on campuses for folks to identify as such. And so I think that's awesome. I've seen that transition in myself with the literature that was provided and the conversations. And so, I mean, that's good. It allowed me to think a little bit deeper about it. So, getting back to the text, on page 182, there is the considerations for individuals charged with envisioning, planning, and/or coordinating efforts to establish multicultural centers. And so I thought this was really interesting because a lot of the times when we think about what does it take in order to achieve something really great, whether that's establishing a cultural resource center or putting together a new initiative or program on campus, we think it just takes, one idea and then for the people to make that idea work. But in this model, it suggests that there are a multitude of different, aspects or elements that play into actually coordinating these efforts. And so it talks about how students had a huge part in that. Also alumni, administration, faculty, local, state, and national context, institutional resources, and there has to be a purpose. And so I never thought that it took so much to establish a resource or a cultural center, and so I thought that put a lot of things in perspective because here it really outlines the important roles that each component has in coordinating these efforts to establish MIBC. So that was really interesting, and then it really breaks it down section by section shortly after that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got out of this week. I really enjoyed this week because it was just something that I really wasn't familiar with necessarily, the concept of multicultural centers, and it just, I don't know, it made me think deeper about it, and I'm really interested to see what you all have to say about your perspective on multicultural centers and the establishment of them, and potentially, OSU having a multicultural center, and what that would do for our biracial, multicultural students here and faculty as well. So yeah, what are your thoughts? I will see y'all soon. Bye.